So when Cougar reached out to me and said, hey Jay, do you want to check out our FV270 case? I'm like, I don't know, I guess maybe. Cases are pretty boring. Then they showed it to me. And it kind of looks like a refreshing retake on the entire rebranded, repasted, copy-paste Lee & Lee 011 Dynamic. So let's talk about the FV270 because it's got some pretty unique features that make me excited to build in this one. So we're gonna start with the peel on this curved tempered glass front panel. Cool. I just wanted to get it out of the way. Okay, so this is the FV270 as I already stated. I like that they actually put the instructions on how to take the glass off right here on the case because there is an order to getting this front tempered glass curved. I don't know if you guys know how much it costs for them to do curved tempered glass. I mean, it's gotten cheaper over the years, but this is a lot of effort. Now, one thing you might notice on this chassis, and it might need a top-down view, is the fact that it actually comes to sort of a narrowed point. Like from the top down, it looks like a bullet, to be honest. And the reason for that is they kind of took what's the traditional mounting something on the backside where the motherboard is, not having any front fans, but having intakes more on the backside. But because they've tapered that in and they've tapered in the glass, it makes a much smoother transition of air to the back of the chassis. So the natural airflow of this is going to be coming in through the back right here, curving towards our main components, out the top and out the rear exhaust. But what you can't see that's underneath this bubble wrap is there's another front fan that's facing up at an angle, drawing in cool air from this exposed area on the front of the case that's lifted, it's also filtered, blowing air directly towards your graphics card as well. So that's also going to help with the redirect of air and the smoothing of air as it moves towards the rear of the chassis. So with that said, let me go ahead and take the side panel off, which looks like it should just be a pretty simple pop off right here. So here is just our standard, what looks like a regular old tempered glass side panel. Thickness on this looks like it's gonna be about 4 millimeters. You can see it's held in by ball nubbins at the top, and then it's got a little tabs on the bottom. Those actually key index right into the chassis right here. So it's really easy to tell when you've got it in place. That way it doesn't fall down, hit the corner, and then potentially break. One thing to keep in mind though, is that it does have metal frame on the top and the bottom. That helps give it some rigidity and protection against drops if it hits the corner, but the edge of the glass is still sort of exposed. So if that edge of the glass was to hit something, it could potentially shatter. So I just wanted to kind of point that out there for tempered glass people that are like, tempered glass breaks. Well, yeah, all glass can, if you hit it hard enough. This is just protective packing in there to keep anything from jostling around during shipping. Let's get this off of here. Okay, I guess I have to take off the front glass first. So this should just pop out forward now. Okay, yeah, so once our side panel's off, we can grab it here. Look at that. I'm getting my fingerprints all over it, but I like curved glass. It just looks so nice. Anyway, put that right there. Gently now. So here is some more tape that's just sort of holding things down. But here's that front fan I was telling you about right here. It's actually like a reverse fan. So this is drawing in that air, and then it comes from this whole compartment right here, and then it just sort of pushes air right towards your graphics card. So I like the fact that they're thinking about cooling necessity for 450 plus watt graphics cards that exist now, because your case is going to play a huge part on the ability to cool those components. Unfortunately, taking the tape off left a little residue, so I'm gonna have to clean that off. This is something they actually came up with a little bit later in packaging. So they kind of learned early on that some of the parts could potentially have come loose. Like I think it's the GPU bracket that could come loose, and then it could scratch the inside of the case, and they didn't want that to happen. So they sort of put packing tape down where things need to be kind of secured a little better. I think it might have actually been this that came loose. But anyway, unfortunately, packing tape leaves some residue. Nothing a little bit of Goo Gone or some 3M adhesive remover can't get off. So I'd rather have to deal with that than dealing with a case that potentially comes with a little bit of damage inside. Okay, moving on. This is pretty neat. So this is just a little thumb screw that's on there pretty snug. And this, I believe, is going to allow us to remove this mid plate, because we can mount fans to this. We can have a bottom rad here if we want, or underneath if it's small enough and will fit. You can see it fits two 120s or two 140s. So we can get even additional airflow into the main chassis, blowing directly up on our graphics card. So we can have this one pulling in air in the front, directing it at an angle, and two more blowing air directly up. And with the bottom of this chassis and the amount of ventilation there is down there, you can see, and then unfortunately a little bit of a negative mark, this filter does come out the rear, unfortunately. So if you've got this pushed up against a wall, I wish they made this a side exit. That way you could clean it easier. So you have to scoot your case forward if you want to clean your filter out. Anyway, and then the front filter is accessible just right here. It's just a little tab. And then we can see our reverse fan up in there. You can technically change that fan with a different one if you want, but it is already RGB. And it looks like it's a DF1202512RFLN. That's the model number if you're curious as to what's in there. But anyway, so this does give us a place to add more fans to that center bracket if we want. And it's also nice because if you're not going to do that, you can still remove this to help with cable management down here and tidy up your fans in that lower compartment. So you can fit a big power supply and still have a lot of room for cooling. We haven't even gotten to the back of the case yet. We can see, obviously, as I already showed you, we have this adjustable bracket right here, which is an anti-sag bracket for your graphics card. It's only adjustable up and down. It is not adjustable left and right. So this is gonna be for your big boys, like your 4080s, 4080 Supers, 4090s. I guess even some 4070 Ti Supers are as big as 4080s now. So that's a nice to see. In terms of our rear mounted position here for fans and or AIOs or radiators, you can fit a 240 or a 280 right there. And then on the top, because we have offsets, you can see right there we have multiple mounting rails, lots of space, lots of depth with those multiple rails to be able to make sure that we can mount it away from our motherboard far enough to where we're not hitting any high, tall VRMs or whatever. In terms of our I/O in the back, you can see we also have really nice stainless steel thumb screws for our I/O shield covers. We do have another filter right here. It is magnetic and it is taped into place for shipping. This is for any air that gets sucked in from the backside. Because if we do put fans down in this lower compartment right here, right, you can see it's gonna be pulling air in from the bottom as well as the side right here. And I like the fact that we have this ventilation right here so it can still pull in through any gaps in the power supply. So air could potentially come in right here, so that's filtered as well. We also have this little plate on the back side of the motherboard tray, which this gives us a mounting point for drives as well as also being ventilated. So you don't have any hard drives sitting here blocking off any airflow to the back of the socket. You know, heat moves in 360 degrees. So the back side of your CPU socket puts off heat as well. So not having a solid plate sitting there, allowing heat to radiate and bounce back at itself and then get hotter in there is nice to see. If you're not gonna be installing drives on this or using it, it's probably best to just leave it out, to be honest, because you'll get even better like cooling on the back side of you. It can radiate heat away from itself a little better. So we also have our cable management rails right here, which just have Velcro holding them in place. Huge grommets, so we have plenty of room to move cables through. Also comes all the way down right here. White cables for a white case, that's nice. I hate when I see case manufacturers do black cables with white cases, because that's just dumb. This doesn't stand out as terribly. Hopefully over time they don't yellow. Time will tell, because sometimes white cables can turn beige or yellow over time and then they look kind of gross. So time will tell on this one. It just depends on the material that they're using and how it responds to any sort of UV light that might exist in your case. Fun fact, people still like to do glow in the dark and put UV light in their case. And then they start to wonder why their rubbers and other like white things in their case start to turn really weird colors. It's because it's doing exactly what the sun would do to it. Only it's just a much closer source. So this is just another cover, which as you can see is also fully ventilated as well as filtered. The porosity on these filters is pretty fine. So you're probably gonna lose a good 50 to 60% of your airflow just by going through these filters, which means that obviously it's gonna be doing its job in filtering out dust and particulates, but as it gets clogged, the airflow will significantly reduce as well. So this kind of filter you're gonna wanna probably stay on top of pretty regularly if you live in a dusty, dirty area like we do. I'm one of those people that just like noise is not an issue for me. I don't care about loud PCs, they don't bother me. I also don't care about dusty PCs. I clean them often, so I tend to take filters out, but it's nice that they're there and they're magnetic. You can tell they took the design and the concept of dual chamber top and bottom and motherboard mounted on the rear without going too crazy or looking like it's any sort of a copy. I like the fact that this is something that it looks like they've pretty much designed for the most part themselves from the ground up. Oh, one other thing here. That little panel I showed you on the side of the power supply. Also another place that you can mount a drive or two. And I like that it comes out because now it gives us full access to our power supply when we're getting cables and stuff down here and mounted out of the way. Also right here on the front side of the bottom compartment, there is a mount for a 2.5-inch SSD or hard drive. It does come with the rubber mounts as well in this accessory box right here. That way they slide into those little like grooves and then they lock into place. That's anti-vibration pads. If you have a spinning drive down there, it's not going to translate vibrations to your case, which can translate then down to your table and then annoy the crap out of you. We have an accessory box right here. So now that I've done the full tear down, let's see what is in the accessory box. Probably some brackets for drives and stuff, I'm assuming. So this is actually the vertical mount because this case is modular in the sense that you can convert it to a vertical mount. So here's that mid plate that I showed you. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back in here real quick. So this would be mounted down right here. You can undo these screws right here. So 1, 2, 3, like these perimeter screws around the IO, and then it rotates into a vertical mount. And then this goes right down here. And then there's a screw that supports that. That way you can mount your riser cable, which is sold separately, by the way. They have a specific riser cable for this. The riser cable can mount right here, and then your GPU can be vertical. So this is the riser mount support for that. Let's see, a couple other things I forgot to show. This piece right here does unscrew. So you can see we have a screw right here. There's also, I think, one on the back, possibly. The manual shows you. This can stay on here up to ATX. EATX, and the problem with EATX is it's not a standard size these days. Anything beyond ATX, whether it's a 1/2 inch or 2 inches, is considered EATX. But if you want to do EATX or CEB format, then you need to take, or form factor, you need to take this shroud off entirely. Then it will give you access to what you can see right here is just this giant grommet. So then you'll have access to that and it will overhang a little bit. Otherwise, if you stick with a standard ATX board, a lot of your cables and stuff will be sort of stealthed right into here, which is kind of nice. And then you won't even really see them. So it's kind of funny. Over time, we seem like we have this push going to more kind of like completely invisible cables, especially with the rear mounted motherboard cables now that are starting to come out from companies like MSI and ASUS. Will be interesting. And I'm wondering if that's why these gaps are here, because of the fact that this is actually where those pinouts are for those cases or those motherboards that have direct power cable built into the board itself and the 24 pin that goes through the back. So I'm thinking this board is actually, or this case is actually forward compatible with what's currently been shown as the layout and format that those particular types of form factors are going to use. And then obviously those would be right here on the back with cables plugging directly into them. Might need a little more depth in that case, depending on how like tight the bends are going to be. But this is probably something you're going to start seeing in more cases, are these cutouts right here, and here, as well as where the 24 pin would go, just to be able to kind of accommodate what that forward-looking form factor looks like. The top, this just comes off again with the little ball nubbins, and this is heavy. And then we have a magnetic filter just right here on the top as well. Big old giant filter. So I forgot to tear that down. Tear down is pretty simple. So far I haven't even needed to, like I got my screwdriver just in case like any of the thumb screws were just put on by the Hulk, but they haven't been. I've been able to undo them all. Let's talk about this front piece right here. This is actually customizable. So it's just held in there by a little snap. We can take it out, because it's held on, it's like contact pogo pins kind of a deal. So you can see it's just a regular fan. It's just a reverse bladed Cougar fan that's got RGB, and you can put anything you want on there because it comes with the harness. It's got an ARGB harness right there, and it's got a 4-pin PWM harness. And now these just go into the existing cables coming out right here. This is actually them right here, these two, which just go into the regular harness. And then this is the only fan that comes included with the case. So that's one drawback to a case that costs, we'll talk about price now, $179.99 USD, at least as far as we have from our literature. It's an expensive case to not really come with any case fans, but I think that's because Cougar knows that you're probably going to put something nice in there, and rather than give you something cheap, you kind of got to fill it in yourself. I still would prefer to see a cheap fan in there than no fans, but I think anyone shopping in like the $180 price point for a case is probably going to outfit it with fans of their own anyway. And we got some of their fans we're going to look at in a separate video that are actually pretty neat because they daisy chain. Daisy chain clicking together fans is like the future. I feel like every fan manufacturer needs to get on that. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind because cable mess sucks. And it's nice to see that more brands are coming out with that. So this is what that shroud looks like. It literally is just a bowl that's designed to scoop air up towards the, push air up towards the GPU. However, if you're one of those people that's like, and I swear I'm not putting you down, but if you're one of those people that's like, I put an action figure in my case, it's now a theme. They got you covered with this. This is the FV270 Luminous Rotating Platform. All it is a stand that replaces that fan and allows you, there it is, it's just, as you can see, the exact same layout. It has the same contact pins and everything right there. All it is a piece that's designed to replace your fan to then be able to put a figurine or something on there and it lights up. So it's kind of neat because it is motorized, so your figurine will sit there doing circles or whatever. Unfortunately, this controller that I have right here doesn't actually send an RGB signal. It just kind of passes one through, so it's not lighting up. And I don't have like an inline one that I can use in the meantime, but I think you all know what RGB looks like currently. It would just look like a display piece. I also am not a fan of the motor quality on it though, because if you watch, it hiccups, look. And it makes a click sound. It's a neat to have. I mean, it's 25 bucks. It's a $25 accessory. If that's something that kind of floats your boat, it's an option, but I personally would absolutely much rather have this fan in there. I do like how easy this is to swap out though. It's like, okay, I want to change this. Let's pull it out. Take this guy, put it back in, and now I kind of want to test and see how loud this fan is and how much airflow is coming through there. I know everything's open right now, but all right, let's see. It's a good amount of air, honestly. The bottom filter is off right now, but it's not too loud. It's not too crazy. A good amount of airflow. Like I can feel the airflow all the way over here. So it's definitely doing its job. Okay, so some final thoughts time when it comes to the FV270. Also need to make a correction. I said you could fit a 420 radiator up top. You'd probably have to get creative to do that. It does say it officially supports a 240, a 280, and a 360. But I think the problem is because it's kind of indented up in the top, like this IO on the top right here, kind of gets in the way of any end tanks. If you did fan and then rad underneath that, you probably could get it to work, but it doesn't sound like they're officially, quote unquote, supporting it. Yeah, and I forgot to mention the buttons on the top, they're white with an orange ring on them. So there's a little bit of color splashed in with this because orange is Cougar's color. So you got your power button, your reset button, your combo headphone jack, USB-C, and 2 USB 3. So that's obviously all part of the cables that are included with the case that get plugged into your motherboard. The only thing I think could possibly make this cleaner looking aesthetics would be if this was a single piece of glass all the way to the rear, but that would have been a nightmare to make because of this bend in the way it mounts. So there has to be this seam right here. That seam is like the only thing that kind of takes away from the super smooth aesthetic of the curved tempered glass. But you know, maybe in the future they can find a way to do this as a single piece and not have it cost an absolute fortune. So there you go, finally somebody coming up with a case design that is not just a copy pasta of the Lee & Lee 011 dynamic layout. They kind of took like what seems like unique features of a bunch of different cases and kind of give you one very nice looking full-sized ATX compatible desktop computer with plenty of cooling, modularity to be able to fit any component that you really want in there. You could easily do a custom loop in this. You could easily do big giant RTX 4090. Like the depth alone, if you just look at the plane of where the screws are for mounting down the graphics card and the amount of extra space you have to the window right here, mean that you can fit extra height graphics cards and still not put a crazy bend on your 12-volt power cable with worries about that coming loose and causing melting issues if you're running a high-powered graphics card. So there is just a massive amount of flexibility in this case. I mean, I like the fact that you have this removable midplate. Removable midplates are nice because they give you access to get to the stuff that's down below without having to just cram it all from the rear. I guess you can, whatever. Immaturity level is going up. So let's go ahead and start to wrap this one up. There you go, guys. I'll put a link to the description down below. The FV270, I think I'm gonna do a build in this. I just need to find the right circumstances to put a build in here. I think all white and silver components would look really good in this, like as much stainless steel type of look as we can get in there. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of compromises here. I mean, really, my only issue is, like the biggest issue I currently have is this rear fan filter, which comes out the back. So you can see you need to pull it out from the wall at least that far to get your filter clean, or out to clean it. Fortunately, the only thing that's really gonna be pulling air through this, which isn't a crazy amount of air, is gonna be your power supply, unless you put fans in that mid plate. So this shouldn't accumulate dust too quickly, meaning that you're not gonna have to pull it out too often. But a side released filter would have been best for that. All right guys, there you go. I've been saying for a while now, case videos are boring because it's just the same thing over and over and over. And I'm happy to see, and it's funny because Cougar's not known for being safe with their case designs. I mean, the Cougar Conquer, which is what I did the whole Threadripper build based on, with the twisty tubes and the crazy space looking type of chassis, is come from Cougar. Cougar is one of those brands that just continues to be like, you know what, let's do something different than what everyone else is doing. And that is such a sigh of relief to see a company still willing to do that, rather than going, oh, what's working? Let's just lean into that horse and let's just beat it until it's absolutely dead. So there you go, guys. I'll put a link to this case down below, as well as Cougar's main website, so you guys can see what other chassis they have. I guarantee you're gonna see some things in there that you go, whoa, that's something different. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out today. Tell me what you feel about this case. Would you build in it? And as always, we'll see you in the next one.